This person argues that as a teacher, I assume you are aware of the writings of John Swanson Jacobs and Frederick Douglass, whose eyewitness descriptions of their lives in slavery includes passages talking about their kind-hearted owners. These passages were expunged in many printings by abolitioners, which apparently is a word, who didn't want anyone to know this. Always teach the truth. So let's talk kindness in slave owning and teach the truth. In fact, I think we can do this with Frederick Douglass's own words, because surely this person is not misrepresenting them in any way. And since I am such a good teacher and historian, here is the primary source document we're going to be looking at today, available for free online through the Avalon Project over at Yale Law School. This is My Bondage and My Freedom by Frederick Douglass, printed 1855. He's just talked about an enslaved man who is sold as punishment for saying something honest but critical of his owner. And Douglass writes, this is the penalty of telling the simple truth in answer to a series of plain questions. It is partly in consequence of such facts that slaves, when inquired of as to their condition and the character of their masters, almost invariably say they are contented and that their masters are kind. Slaveholders have been known to send spies among their slaves to ascertain, if possible, their views and feelings in regard to their condition. The frequency of this has had the effect to establish among the slaves the maxim that a still tongue makes a wise head. So, for starters, Douglas tells us that enslaved people do not have the luxury of free speech to talk about the kindness of masters, because the consequences for doing so can be life altering, if not life ending. A little further down, he writes, I was frequently asked while a slave if I had a kind master, and I do not remember ever to have given a negative reply. Nor did I, when pursuing this course, consider myself as uttering what was utterly false, for I always measured the kindness of my master by the standard of kindness set up by slaveholders around us. However, slaves are like other people and imbibe similar prejudices. They are apt to think their condition is better than that of others. So Douglas is saying that when enslaved people talk about kind masters, they're just comparing one master to another, like that's the ranking system. So the bar is already in hell, right? They're not saying this person is kind in the way that a normal person is kind. It's like saying, I don't know, who's the kindest serial killer you can think of? Like, this is not the normal scale. On page 344, he says, of the system of slavery, absolute and arbitrary power can never be maintained by one man over the body and soul of another man without brutal chastisement and enormous cruelty. In short, slavery could not exist without torture. To talk of kindness entering into a relation in which one party is robbed of wife, of children, of his hard earnings, of home, of friends, of society, of knowledge, and of all that makes this life desirable is most absurd, wicked, and preposterous. Not my words. Frederick Douglass. You said Frederick Douglass was what I should be teaching, that this is the truth that I should be teaching. Frederick Douglass says to talk of kindness in slavery is absurd, wicked, and preposterous. So, yes, random slavery apologist page, thank you for telling us to teach the truth with Frederick Douglass's own words. I hope maybe you listen to some of them.